Thank you all for being here. Friends, familiar friends. Some of you I'm seeing right here. Where's my mark? Backwards? More back? Hi. So many familiar faces. Thank you all for being with us. We always have fierce competition with the weather on days like this. So we really appreciate your commitment. Some of you are here for the second time today. Some of you are here for the second time this week. I think that covers the entire audience, so thank you. I'm Sherry, I'm the executive director here. I want to share a little bit more of a formal introduction than I usually do as a way for you to begin to contextualize and understand Thomas Deininger and the conversation he's about to share with ERIC FISCHL. As you all know, ERIC curated this summer's exhibition entitled The Arc. And yes, you can clap. Who claps? Yay. And one of the true delights of the exhibition is Thomas Deininger's work, Pigeon on the Giacometti Walking Man. People have been beguiled. It's been a great introduction for many people who may have been unfamiliar with his work beforehand. Although he has shown on the East End before, as many of you know, he was included in a show at the Southampton Art Center a few years ago. So before this afternoon session, I would just like to share with you some notes of his biography. Tom was born in Boston, Massachusetts, originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and went to Salve Regina University and won the Art Departmental Award in 1992. He spent his 20s traveling around the world, painting and surfing, and it was, yeah, that sounds fun. And it was during these explorations that Tom developed thoughts about American consumerism and the negative environmental impacts associated with lifestyles and habits, contemporary lifestyles and habits. His large-scale mosaics, sculptures, and installations were a response to the ways in which consumer cultures threaten our natural environment and undermine the value of our spiritual and social engagement. He works across a wide variety of medium and styles, and he has exhibited in galleries and museums throughout the world. He lives with his wife and 4 children in Bristol, Rhode Island, and works out of his permaculture and animal rescue farm studio in Tiverton. You can find him on Instagram as well as a couple of gallery sites. We are very pleased. Please extend a warm welcome to Thomas Deininger.
Thank you.
I first of all want to thank Amy Kerwin, who's sitting there, who was my introduction to Tom's work. What was that, like 10 years ago or?
2021. Yeah.
That's 4 years ago. That's only 4 years ago. Okay, anyway, you curated a show in which 3 of his pieces were in it, and it was one of those great moments of discovery for me of both a beauty and a strangeness and an invention and inventiveness, et cetera, that I didn't forget for all of the 10 years that I've forgotten everything else. But anyway, so that was an introduction. So of course, when I was putting this show together, it was imperative to me that we get a piece of Tom's as part of the ARC show, and we began a conversation about what might be possible. And he suggested Giacometti and Pigeon as it. So I have to say, as I told him, that it's one of the most talked about pieces in the show, from many different points of view, but always with this sense of like, how the fuck does he do this? How can anyone make this actually work and stuff? And so that's a place that I'd kind of like to begin to get it out of the way with, a process of putting the pieces together, and then we can go into some other histories and obsessions that you have.
Okay. how to answer that. There's a lot of back and forth. When I got obsessed with painting, I think I was in my early 20s. It was how to do it, how to make something look like something else representationally, and I guess I started with traditional academic realism, and there's different methodologies of how to make a picture from, and you've got the Renaissance. In the Renaissance, they built up glazes. They would do full value drawings, paintings, and then they would apply colored glazes to, and so we're thinking about Caravaggio and things like that. And that's one way to do it. And then as paint became more plentiful, the Impressionists started kind of loosening up and applying paint directly to canvas, mixing the colors, and then techniques were born out of that, pointillism and that kind of thing. And I got just obsessed with the different methods of how to make something look like something else with paint, and I explored all those different things in my stylistic development, and never really knowing I would need to reach back into that toolbox of different methodologies to create an illusion. I didn't know why I wanted to know so much, but there's lots of ways to kind of fool the eye. And how to make them is born of painting. And I paint every day for an hour or two just to kind of warm up my brain to do this thing. But I have to say, my head sort of hurts when I make these. Like it's like a hard crossword puzzle or something where you want a line or a shape, and I sort of go about going around the studio looking for things, but then you build up this database of things that could be used for, I call it sort of reverse biomimicry, which is, if you think about biomimicry, it might be Velcro is a burr, comes from the burdock plant, which is meant to, it's got the little barbs and the hooks, and it's meant to stick onto animals' fur, and that's how the plant propagates and travels. And so that's Velcro was invented from that. So that's biomimicry. Whenever we're looking at natural worlds to solve technical problems, I kind of do a reverse of that. When I look at, call it a pigeon, I start looking around at the man-made world and look at the things that I could potentially use to mimic those things that were probably mimicked from nature anyway. And so you develop an acute eye for the things you need. The pigeons have that iridescent green, and so you start looking out in the world, and the world becomes your palette. And if for nothing else, and it didn't serve as a statement or catharsis or whatever, it keeps you really keeps my sense of observation and awareness to the material world around me, be it color, line, shape, texture, any of those things. It really keeps me on my toes, because I see stuff everywhere. It's as if beaks and wings and little eyes and things, they kind of emerge out of the landscape. And so
you have in your studio boxes of colors, of plastic things that you've found everywhere, and you just,
Yeah, they're all broken down, thing of pens and wires and random colors and that kind of thing. So they get sorted, and you hope you can remember where the thing is when you need it.
yeah.
And and so it's applying, painting techniques as if you're going to build a painting up. You start with real general big shapes, and you kind of refine. It's not just additive. Sometimes you have to remove things because you find something better that will serve. And it's a lot like jazz, because there's no way how you're going to get from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have it fully formed. I don't have
Trust.
it.
You just trust.
You trust, yeah. And that's the...
Do you make an image of the thing before you begin to construct it? And project that, or how do you map it out?
So the subject will be, let's just call it a pigeon, because that's what's there. You look at every single pigeon on images that you can find. You get every single one. You see the whole spectrum, the variation. You find a pose you might like, but it might not have the coloration. You have and so you kind of make a composite. There's usually one model that you really like, and that's what you mostly stick to, but you want to add a different element of what another bird might be. And then there'll be a few drawings and some paintings, studies, and then usually, sometimes it starts with a drawing depending on the work, but there's no way to keep the image there, because as soon as you add, you're kind of crossing over lines, and so I sort of build it out there and step back and take a look and take lots of pictures and kind of go from there. And refining.
So let me get this straight. So you got something against a wall, image-wise,
Yeah.
that you're building out from.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a drawing, and then sometimes it'll be like put a screen up, like a transparency with the image, sort of the outline of the image. But the problem is, once you put something over it, you can't then get back to it. It's the same problem with painting, in a sense, where you're always ruining your drawing every time you're putting a new piece of something down, a new paint. So
Does a piece start out kind of knowing it's going to be 2 feet wide, or is it something where it's not until you find the arrow that you realize it's going to be this far out?
Yeah, they build themselves, and I have a couple of go-tos that I've worked out over time. But I like the arrows because there is this sort of sense of violence, and there's this is how we're exerting ourselves, and so the arrow going through is fairly common in a lot of my work, but it's never a first step. You always find a way to get the arrow in there, and it's a good thing to build the highlights on, usually.
And speaking of the arrow as some kind of commentary and stuff, there's a lot of storytelling that you do that's buried in the pieces, right? That are other kinds of narrative critiques or amusements or outright pornography or all that sort of
check all those boxes. Yeah. And because you have an opportunity, right? You've got some free real estate here, and so now that I have you here, and also it's a way to sometimes drive a political or some social commentary, but it's also maybe do something that could be interpreted as grotesque or perverse or comical, often all three. And it's a way to get them to lighten the mood up a little so that they're not so morose. I mean, if you think the fact that you can even make these things with these materials that have been kind of cast off is a little depressing in and of itself, but you don't want to be so heavy-handed. You know, I don't want to be relegated to like making the Schindler's List of sculptures for every dead animal, you know, that is, you know, being our pollution or whatever is. So it helps lighten the mood a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, the piece of, first of all, they're so strikingly beautiful and so realistic in initial thing that balance that you get between something where the tragedy is that this beauty is a memory device for something that is being endangered at the very least, if not destroyed totally, and through recycled, materials, cast off, detritus from plastic and stuff like that. There's not a nostalgia attached to it. It's more of a reigniting of a sense of exquisite in the animal itself. I think in that they keep it to me. The work sensitizes me to nature, even though where it's coming from is this kind of sad underpinning.
Thank you, because that's exactly. I mean, these really are. I don't. Back in the day, the paintings were biblical, and for me the muse they allow me to deeply observe these natural creatures, and it's not just. When I was talking about the reverse biomimicry, it's not just the materials. You're looking at the thing itself too. You're looking at the granular. What's the range of, let's say, a cardinal? Some have very proud crowns and are a certain color red, and so you learn a cardinal is not a cardinal. There's such variation even within a male cardinal. And when you start to do that, I do a lot of bird watching as well. It's at least an hour or so of my day. You build a familiarity. You get to know the actual the thing and the what the species, the parameters of which the species is the way it represents, and when you can see that it's not just, it doesn't become just a blue jay. It becomes a kind of a specific blue jay, and staying true to that is. And doing a particular bird is, for me, it's the muse. And I'm dedicated to that illusion, as it becomes obsessive almost. Like you want to do right by the thing.
Yeah. Why don't you throw some work up on the of the slide thing? Also. Just want to say, Sherry mentioned that he has what is it called, a perma-farm?
Yeah, it's a permaculture. So we tell ourselves stories like, how you get on in life. I'm a good dad, or I'm a good friend. I decided at one point after a couple of nervous breakdowns that I was going to sort of try to save this strip of land, and invite as many species to this area. And so it's a farm, and I'm doing a kind of a biodiverse, mostly native plant, bringing back what was there. There's a orchard that I'm putting in, but they're mostly like non-commercial apple trees, which because you can't make a lot of money off them. Eventually, when the guys, they sell the land for where that last apple tree existed, that thing will be gone. That apple but it had a particular history. It was great for a cider back 200 years ago, or whatever it is. And so there's an element where it's a historical orchard to keep these rare species alive, and then there's different fields. But a long story short, I want to leave this piece of land with both the flora and the fauna, a kind of a sanctuary. So that's what the art is funding now. Every piece I sell, I buy a new tree, or I plant bushes, and I've invited other people in to work the land.
I'm just trying to get a sort of a general sense of your day, and I've got 1 to 2 hours of painting.
Yeah.
I've got however long you work on the sculpture.
Yeah.
In between bird watching, animal rescue stuff,
I got 4
planting,
kids.
4 kids, etc. And then designing patterns for your wife's clothing stuff, right?
Well, I got to get a kiteboard session out there.
Oh yeah, you got to get out of the water.
Exercise, or a workout. Yeah, you keep going. But
I mean, I'm saying this mainly because it's like it's such an integrated life. It's different than other artists in a certain way, and similar to some as well. But that thing of where the work comes from is where you live in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And it's full of both the making part of it, the saving part of it, the tactile part of it, the observational part of it, the sensitivity and tenderness and belief, and I don't know. It just seemed in the conversations you and I were having and things that I've read and stuff, a kind of global thing that really impresses me.
It's something I kind of worked out over time, and it's in truth, I've had the opportunity. It's like it's both an opportunity, but it's kind of an obligation. I feel like it's my duty to future generations and the other species, and so I'm not religious, but I try to exist in a way that is akin to kind of aligned with my beliefs.
A moral life.
Yeah. And so that's.
So this is a painting or a part of a painting.
So this is I guess to highlight a little bit before how I got into how I like to think about making an image. It's probably a way to visualize. So if we see that, it's some dots and dashes. It's it's just really paint. And if we go one step further on this thing, again, but you at that scale you can kind of see. But that's kind of very clearly paint on a canvas in these strokes. And by the time you get here, how he's managed to turn those dots and dashes, this is John Singer Sargent, how he's learned to a kind of a hand where you can feel the quality of the skin, you can feel the way in which the hand rests and the light falling on these. And when that happened, I'm going to go to the next one. There's different ways to do that. So he does it with alla prima paint. These are, what are they, hot dogs and donuts? Is that what they are?
Yeah, Chuck called them hot dogs and donuts. He said, you say, what are you doing right now? And he said, I'm painting hot dogs and donuts. So.
Yeah. And so, but it's April, right? It's also April. It's part of it. And so one of the things I used to do as a kid is I'd hold the newspaper really close when all it was just those little dots, and I'd pull it away, and then you could sort of see what was happening. And that's when the world went from like very, very abstract to concrete. Now you have a visualization, this series of colored dots becomes a thing, and now you can feel about that. You can have an emotion about that thing. And that blew my mind. There was something much bigger than it's like, well, yeah, that's how perception works. That's how illusions work. And then the idea of illusions crept in, and it got me thinking more profoundly on because I'm a kind of a manic person. I got some problems, but because I have some ADHD and dyslexia and just a whole abuse. Let's go down the list of just to make an artist, and so to think about how we navigate something. We sort of choose to think about the world, even though we don't think we do. We choose to think about the world in a certain way, and that has everything to do with perspective and observation and all that. And then it's a filtering, and that concept really became kind of the backbone of the idea of balancing something that's chaotic and then some order to it. And we feel like if we can take this chaos that we exist with and order it in a way that somehow helps us to honor the world or to appreciate the world, that's kind of what the art form is. And so it's like taking all this stuff, using these techniques, whether it be a kind of pointillism or the right piece, and order it in such a way that you can say like, all right, I did that thing. This is how I choose to appreciate the world, rather than it's all just washing up on the beaches and fucking killing the animals. What are you gonna do? Oh well. It's like, well, I'm not solving the problem of plastics and that, but now there's a lighter on the beach. I'm at the beach almost every day. I pick it up, and rather than just being bummed out about it, I've worked this kind of Rube Goldberg kind of contraption, which is my art practice, to say like, you know what? You never know. Like, work that into the back of a neck of a blue jay or something, and it's done. It did this thing. It pivoted, and I feel like not only can I just pick it up, I can potentially sort of elevate the mundane and the cast.
So you're already imagining when you pick up a lighter that this could work. It
could, yeah.
In some part of an anatomy of a bird or whatever.
You always see, like Nips bottles in parking lots, and people run them over and they flatten out. And
what kind of bottle?
Just people do the little nips in the little plastic bottles.
Someone who doesn't
I'll
have
get you
kids,
some,
no.
well, no, they're the little ones. People go them to the beach, they drink them, they throw them in the parking lot, and
Okay.
they back over them, they flatten out. It's like, but all you have to do is remove the wrapper, and that's like a perfect like piece to like a bee wing or something. And so this is kind of to my point. It's like, so normally I was like, oh, this fucking can't pick up your shit and just walk it over to, and I'm not like totally bummed out anymore. I just pick it up, throw it in the back of my truck, get it out there, and then lo and behold, it'll be time to do another bee, and I'll go through my pile of them and maybe use 6 or 7 of them, and they can be part of a bee wing. And so it's just this process of being like, well, not all's lost. I can make a bee wing, and it's just fucking absurd, but it's
Do you
a way
have
I
a thing
get
where you cycle, so it's like, I'm going to do a bee every 6 months or something like that?
Yeah, that's how
Some of you go through the...
Yeah, so and I hate to do it. I hate to repeat myself, but but I've built up some that I just keep repeating because you know what to now look for. So I'm finding the pieces to my sculptures out there because they kind of call to me, and then other pieces I don't know what they're going to be yet, and so it's.
You ever have a piece that you've had for years that you still can't figure out what to do with it, or do you have a pile of those?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. And you're just thinking like, someday, I'll know. And so there's that thing that, and that's the pack rat dilemma, right? You're going to read that Times article, I swear it. So the pile is this high, and they got to we get 3 dumpsters out when they finally pull you out of there. It's like because and so it's kind of bad. It's like I hate to be organized. Maybe we'll go to the next. Cubism fascinated me as well. This is Picasso. They were trying to see things from different angles and present things from different angles all at once. And so when I saw Cubism, I kind of got obsessed with that for a while. Then there was a period of time where the representation, this is Richard Diebenkorn, holds on by a thread. It's both paint and figure, but in a different way. It's not about so much illusion, but it is there. And so these are all different ways I was looking at the world, thinking about how to think about painting, image making, and that kind of thing. I had an affair with William de Kooning's work I still love it. But I couldn't make abstract paintings. I tried for a period, and I wound up putting stuff in. These are Robert Rauschenberg's Combines. These really excited me because when I started painting abstractly, I only painted abstractly for about a week and a half, and then I started going to the dump and like picking up and putting the stuff in, and then lo and behold, it was like, oh, somebody had done that, and here's another one. Now he's incorporating animals and putting tires on, and so these are just things that were exciting me for what reason I didn't even know at the time, except for art didn't have to be this. Although this was, you didn't have to go to the art store, right? You could. The world became your palette. That was really excited me, and this stuff. And then this is this is not my photograph from the South Pacific, but I was in the South Pacific and I was seeing this stuff wash up, and then I would go to Nantucket in the summers to make money, and I would go to the dump, and that's where I would get most of my materials. But this is the thing that was disheartening because I lived in the water. It was like, to this day, still, I swim every single day. And when you see the stuff floating around out there, it's kind of heartbreaking because it's not. I can go back up on shore. These poor animals that's what they have to live with, and they mistake it for jellyfish, and this is an actual picture. And so there was a problem, and it you know, you could cry your eyes out. And so just those are the things I was thinking about. Now, this is Edward Kienholz, where I wasn't a sculptor, I was a painter, trying to figure out content is and subject, and also style. And so it was style and form. And he was doing social criticism. And I remember seeing a show at the Guggenheim and just saying, like, yeah, wow, this guy, he doesn't care. He's just, stuff just looked like the resin was still dripping off it. And he's making all this, like, real hard political commentary and social commentary. And I thought, you know what, that's what an artist has to do. An artist has to, and I grew up in an area, an age of punk rock. And it was kind of like, yeah, they're not gonna let them tell you how to live. You're gonna do it by your own, and you gotta challenge the authority and all that sort of stuff. And I realized that's what they were doing back in the day. This is Bruegel, and so, but I couldn't make paintings like this. That didn't make sense. More social commentaries, like, you know, turn it against them. And so there is this part of its punk. This is Tom Sachs, yeah. And when I saw that, it just sort of rocked me. It's like, yeah, turn it against them. Like, don't let them have the thing. Use their things to make them think about other ways to address the world, inequality, where this is Picasso again, handlebars and a seat on a bike, a bowl. And I started thinking, like, well, yeah, that's a shift in perspective. And this is just delightful. It was just people, this kind of bricolage, using things around them to express themselves. And so that's what really, this is, again, this is Paul McCarthy, but it's like, you know, art could be raw and aggressive. It didn't have to be pretty, but I loved beauty. I loved the beauty of the natural world, so I couldn't sit there. Audubon, he documented all the birds to try to inform the world, and this kind of beautiful observation of the natural world. I could just as easily have kind of been a wildlife illustrator. And so it's like taking all these things that make no sense together. This is kind of a long story. We don't have to get into this right now. But I was thinking about ways to interface. This was after 9/11. I was doing pictorial stuff with the objects, but I wanted to take ordinary things, turn them into beauty, but also there was a bottle cap for every victim in the Twin Towers. And so this particular piece was 9/11. And so when I got into meditation, I started doing these ridiculous, boy, my wife wanted to throw me out. Like she's like, now what? Like they're like packing, but they were my son was born, and I was thinking about time. And so I was doing these things, and every ring would stand for, you know, that's why some of them are just unfinished. And they'd have these long, each circle would have this, like, statistical.
What are these made out of?
These are just bottle caps I would find.
These are all bottle caps still?
Yeah. Oh. It was lunacy. But I thought that's my way to keep track of time and to understand what Buddhism or, you know, like the sand things. And so you could see how they were like, but then I got out of that. And then I started doing these installations where this is a video projection of one of my children sleeping, but the installation looked like this. So you can see the camera up there, and it's recording it, all this junk, and you can see there's a face on a screen over there in the corner.
So all of what we're looking at ultimately becomes a portrait of your son?
Yeah, I did.
Daughter who?
There were 3 portraits, all 3 different cameras, and I was kind of obsessed with this idea of not seeing directly what was in front of us, and there's crap that's around us. Plus, I was going through a period of anxiety, and so my children sleeping were always this thing I would just sort of, like, you know, just there was no way to reconcile the things that were around us, surrounding us in this world, with these things that I cared about so deeply. It was almost incomprehensible. And I tried to kind of marry the two to see if I could get them, and then play with the idea of perspective. And
So are you, when you're putting the pieces together, are you looking at the screen to sort of see how the, you know, how the face is coming together?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and that's when where I would use a camera, and so that's kind of a drawing of what the thing would look like. I guess again, I don't know where I think I lost my that might be it. But so that was before. That was kind of before my midlife crisis, nervous breakdown, whatever you want to call it. And then I gave up my practice, my art practice, because I saw it as useless, and I kind of gave myself back to the land. And then I had one more idea. I saw a bird. I was like, you know what? Maybe I could go back there and do it, and that's how I got to the birds.
Uh-huh.
So, you know,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now.
Huh?
And that was about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how you put your own process together in terms of the breakdown and the restructuring and stuff. The leap from flat painting to 3D is pretty startling in terms of being able to actually visualize to yourself the making of this thing. But that whole thing of you know, seeing both the you know, brush stroke and then the you know, descriptive form, and then see the total picture and stuff is, you know, that's such a clear way of understanding your process.
Yes. I guess it still is this evolution. I mean, again, the whole thing is you wonder where it starts and ends, right? You know, you don't know whether the whole thing is an excuse to observe the world in a way that's just takes all of your attention, in different parts of the world. You know, kind of the man-made world and the natural world, and how to reconcile those things. And in some ways, it's not just bashing on us as consumers. We're that, but it's also it's a little bit of a celebration at the variety of stuff we can make as human beings. I mean, for every little action figure, that's somebody that had to invent the character. Then somebody drew it, and it was a comic strip or whatever it was, and then they had to make the sculpture, the toy, and the human ingenuity just to get that little piece of whatever crap that washes up on the beach. It's not nothing. It's evidence of an incredibly creative species that you know you're just trying to root for.
Yeah.
You know. But that's, you know, yeah, so.
No, it's amazing. I'd like to open it up to the audience if there's questions to ask. There's one right here, Sue.
Yeah.
No, you got to wait for Kristen.
Little legs.
Great, thank you. I was really curious about the Giacometti piece, and you were talking about in creating the bird, you know, sometimes about just getting it right. And I was wondering if when you were your subject also includes another person's artwork,
Yeah.
if there was any kind of liberation in that you could interpret more, or if there was that same call to, be correct with it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd always loved Giacometti, and one of the things I'd been wanting to do, I'd done a little bit in the past, is, okay, what's the natural world is interacting with art, so using other artists' work to perch the bird on. And then there becomes kind of a personal story about Giacometti, kind of who he was as a person and an artist. I was seeing some things in my own personal life that reminded me of my son, and he was kind of a complicated person. Many people think he might have been on the autism spectrum because of just the kind of the way he lived, what he paid attention to, and the obsessive way he would work, his mark making. And my youngest son was recently diagnosed. There's that, and I have an older brother that struggles with a little bit of depression that I check in on every couple of days. And he's got this saying, mostly when he doesn't want to tell me how shitty he's feeling. He's like, Tom, some days you're the pigeon, other days you're the statue, right? And I got thinking about that, and I got thinking about that I wanted to do like an homage to Giacometti as some kind of reaching through to hope that my young son would find a way to live in a world where he could kind of contribute to something. There was that, and then there was also a walking man sculpture. Once I started doing some research, sold for some exorbitant, I think it was $104 million. And then that got me into like thinking about the perversity of wealth accumulation and acquiring things. I mean, I think in some ways the Giacometti sculpture is no price. It's worth. It's priceless in a way, but it's also kind of weirdly obscene that somebody's willing to put these resources into that kind of thing when there's so much inequality, and that's a tough pill going down too. And so that pigeon, I thought, like, well, the natural world doesn't give a shit about our greatest achievements and our expressions. It's indifferent. You put a Giacometti out, and a pigeon will come and sit on its head and just take a shit on it. And it's indifferent. It doesn't, it operates in a whole different paradigm. And so there was sort of that. And there was also the opportunity in the bird shit to make a guy getting fellatio. So I thought, what else do you need, really, so the idea is like we live in this human-centric world. And we objectify the animals. So what I kind of liked, and I hadn't said up till now, I like the idea that there's a human up there too, because we are animals. We separate ourselves, and I think that's one of our biggest kind of pitfalls. Once we realize that we're sharing the place, and they're important too. We're other animals just getting on. I think we might be a little bit better off.
Yeah, Paul. Here, wait a minute, there's a...
My name is Paul Davis. I'm an artist, and I can really identify with a lot of the things you talked about, and I have a kind of OCD that what started me off was seeing all the garbage that we threw out every week. And I would look at the garbage, you know, the cans and the cups and the plastic things and the metal things and all of that stuff. And I had this idea that I could at least keep part of that from going into the dump. You know, because the dump doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there, or it goes in the ocean, or it goes somewhere else. And I got this OCD, and I started looking at every little piece of thing and I can't help it. And I realized that the thing that's the problem is part of it. And I'm also lately I've been very interested in the way that they're finding that animals. More and more animals use tools. Animals use tools in a way that we don't ever think of using them even. And others, like crows, use tools all the time, just picking things up and moving them around. And, you know, they're really smart animals. And they can recognize people, too.
You have crows, too? Because we have a murder of crows that visit us every day, and we leave them, and if we haven't fed them yet, they yell at us. And
yeah, I like to sit out in the evening and see where the crows go and see what they're doing. Yeah. And I can talk to them too. Like if I call at them, they will call back.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
What?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, my idea was that that I was going to try to save this, at least a small segment of this stuff, to going into the garbage, but I also realized that the human beings are so incapable of understanding, as you say, that we are an animal.
Yeah.
And sharing this whole thing with all these other animals, and I really appreciate that. And I think that, but I don't get anxious about it. I just say, this is all I'm going to be able to do, this little bit of thing that I can do, and take some of the garbage and turn it into collage or art or sculpture or something else. But I do, and the other thing, when I teach, I tried to teach my students that starting with the fur covered cup, to see that I give them the assignment to take an object and totally make it upside down so it's not usable as that object anymore, but it's a piece of art, like the cup, you know, the fur cup. But that I can't remember who did it, but. What? Yeah. And I was very disappointed in most of the things that my students would do. They couldn't quite wrap their heads around it, and they were young people, and they were just starting out to art school, and I guess we all have to go through the suffering of learning all these things that we have to. That looking back, we all have to learn this about how many artists there are and what they do. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah. It's this thing of what I also like is using something for. Completely against the intention for which it was designed, and there's a nice kind of quality of like you redefine the thing, and never in a million years I would think the person designing it, whatever, and be like, Jesus Christ, like never thought it would be that thing, and so you create another world, it's almost like a potential for infinite possibilities. I do that dumbass thought experiment sometimes too, Yeah.
Yeah, Myrna.
More pictures of other sculptures like the one upstairs. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Because before the show opened, I happened to see, was there a documentary or a segment on PBS?
Yeah, there was a PBS, and then I think CBS Sunday morning.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Let me see if I can. It's going to be.
Let's see that B wing you're talking about.
Oh yeah, so I get really obsessed with the off angle. I love how abstract they can appear to be. And then, I don't know, I think there's like, this is the actual, and so, let's see. I think I have a picture of myself here with it. So, but, yeah, here's like another angle of it. And you can kind of see what goes on in the thing. So that's a oh, this one's kind of fun. I was talking about the cardinal. This is kind of a plump cardinal. Maybe there's a video. Maybe we could do the video here. And it's a good way to. Oh, I remember. Yeah, this. That just so happened. He's like, no, stay there. Like, all right. I wonder if there's a video for this one. Yeah, I think. All right, let me just see. But yeah, so and then you get to make the videos and squeeze in all sorts of other stuff. So my Instagram, I realized like, right, these aren't just sculptures anymore. This is a template, and so my assistant and I combed through all kinds of old movies and commercials, and we saved these quotes, these sayings, and any piece will have anything from a Mad Men episode all the way back to like some science fiction, and then we kind of string it together with a beat, and we try to kind of tell a different story about, that might relate to the piece, but also just speaks to the culture at large, whether, whatever it might be. Maybe it's perception, maybe it's, commercialization or whatever else. So.
Hi. I'll pass it to you, Amy, after I just happened to have the mic in my hand. First of all, I just want to commend how extraordinary it is to hear you talk about your life in the world and your commitment to living a life of integrity, and your embrace of your relationship to the world that you occupy. It's really incredible and impressive and beyond what's expected to hear necessarily from a talk about one's work, and it of course is related. And also your art historical references and knowledge are quite impressive as well. That's just a compliment. I do have a couple of questions that are about your technique. The first one is, as a viewer, it's very transfixing or beguiling to understand like the sum of the parts. I'm curious if it appears that you are, but I'm curious if you could speak to how much attention you give to the actual smaller compositions that exist within the works, because we're all looking at this composite image, but it seems like there's also there's almost like another sculpture that you're making within the detail.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I like them to look a certain way. Sometimes I rearrange because I say, I'll want a line to have be a little more lyrical, and so it's easy enough to find a piece to do the thing. And I said, but it'd be more beautiful if we pulled it out this way. And let's, so I echo lines, and forms and all that kind of thing. I could probably find an example of that.
Well, even that little guy playing golf, like, I would imagine you don't need that guy playing golf there in order to make that image.
Oh, well, that, yeah, the Trump golfer, yeah. Well, that kind of, the whole piece was he's on a green and he's driving this. It was all about his ego, actually. It's kind of asinine, but like to his mind, he's doing this thing, but the actual golf ball he had missed. So it was kind of like what his mind's eye, and then the arrow was kind of coming back through the bird and hitting him, but it was also blowing Elmo to pieces, and there was a dump there, which actually, maybe we'll go back there. And so you can see, we'll do a section, and so you find a little area where you can put all this sort of stuff, and so the dump is behind the chain link fence, and that's when I start telling all kinds of these little stories. Let me just see if I can find a better detail of, and so you have, and so to find a piece, I wanted to make a log, so I found a squirrel, and then use that as part of the log, and then the squirrel was holding this Coke and drinking it, and then they just kind of start going on these absurdist narratives, and there's a Ronald McDonald type here, and Saint Francis statue wearing I can't explain any of this stuff. It's like a fever dream.
Can you show, I would love to see, if you want to show a little bit more of your work. They're really amazing for us to see. Okay, and how long does it take you to make, that's my last question, how long does it take you to make one of these? Because that attention to detail in the cardinal is unbelievable.
They take a while, but so I was looking at a specific Walleye Kandinsky painting when I was making this, and actually trying to not make a copy of it, but make something that sort of referenced that painting, so that was the excuse for a lot of these circles and these squares that were in that particular piece. So there was other ways to do it, but so I think that's what it looks like, and that was a Korean dollar bird. And so let's see.
Do you work on more than one at a time? Or
I do,
you got
yeah.
several going on?
Yeah, usually I have 3 or 4, sometimes 5 going on, because you're just looking around for the thing that they're really hard to do from start to finish. Yeah. And so you're like, I can, you're out there in the world looking, and so the more time that they have, the more, let me see, I'm trying to figure out.
Tom, we have a question here.
You mentioned that you paint every day,
I paint every day for a couple hours, yeah.
and it's a warm-up.
It's kind of a warm-up, yeah.
So are you painting anything that relates to your sculptures?
Yeah, a lot of times there's studies. So I have just stacks of bird paintings. I don't know where. And I'm afraid to go into my photos because
I'd love to see some
on
paintings.
stage, like this, yeah. I want to show you my paintings, but
You can now safely browse your computer without eyes.
yeah. Here's an idea what they might look like from an off angle.
Let us know when it's cool to have eyes.
Oh, yeah. Here's an off angle. And so what they look like from that angle, I want them to look like Sarah Z sculptures or Nancy Rubin's. I want them to. Frank Stella, for a period, did these things. I want them to seem kind of. I don't know whether organic is the word, but I really like exploding that space apart and creating these different shapes. And so that matters almost as much. I mean, I could make them much more easily, but I'd rather make them kind of elegant and long and with a lot of air in between them, and stacking and repeating shapes and lines that connect it up. So that's, I think, we could do that. So I think that's what the bird looked like. So, what's that? Yeah. It's hard for me to point out, but so these shapes in interacting they're weirdly important to me, and this is where you can see kind of my love affair with like William de Kooning and the abstract expressionists. Like I love Marx and meaningless Marx and so you can really this art form I get to have my cake and eat it too in that way. I can be sort of deeply committed to the illusion, but also have this other thing that can just be bizarrely abstract, more abstract. Yeah, so that's this bird here, which I don't know if that's the...
Got another question here.
Yes, hi, I'm absolutely fascinated.
Thank you.
But just a question, how many times do you have to move
Oh,
up close
I get
and
my
far
steps-
away
I
and
get
up
my
close
steps in
again
all
too?
day, all
Because it
day.
must be a continuous
How do you think I keep
process.
this physique? It's like it's all day,
Right.
Which is kind of great. And as you put a piece. I have an assistant as well. I was like, hey, can you move that over? All right, yeah, that's perfect. But it's easier just to go back and forth in some ways because you have to. There's no way to communicate a little bit more to the, no tilt at that, yeah. Yeah, I have a little bit of a meditation practice, and when it works, it's like all of that chatter, all those different little voices, they all kind of silence, and for like maybe a second, I don't even know, maybe time doesn't exist, nothing exists, and it's absolutely perfectly quiet, and it seems like, okay, it's like the hum stops, and I feel like that's almost like the biggest illusion of all. It's like it is no way. It's like, but that idea that like from a single point, the entire world makes perfect sense, and then that's fleeting. That's yeah.
Your work makes me think about anamorphosis very much, like Holbein, the ambassador, the shape that can't be read unless you go
to the angle, right?
to the angle.
Yeah.
So you never mentioned that in your references, but to me it's so obvious in a way.
I remember reading about that painting, and I think that was the first time somebody had anamorphic, I think is what it's called, is where it takes a certain, So yeah, the idea of a single point perspective, I don't think that's necessarily new, you know, but it does, yeah, it does have that, and it's a skull, right? And yeah, and it's the portrait of was it like a king or something? Yeah, ambassador, right?
Is somewhat in relationship to this as well, because you are collecting things that are rejects of our society, of our consumption, and so you are making a comment and you are making it into something beautiful. And there was something similar at work in the ambassador, which expressed the vanity of our undertaking, no matter which position in society we occupy.
Yeah.
Who gets all the stuff for you?
What's
Because you don't have the time.
So my family fills a trash bag, like a pretty big, like a hefty bag, probably every 3 weeks or a month, and I schlep that and sort it. Every time I go to the beach, I'd leave with a couple of pieces, whatever, lighters, combs, whatever. And then I have a few different people that do beach cleanups. They give me the stuff. And then people they don't want to throw the stuff away. And so they mail me little boxes. Yeah, like, and for a while, I was just mailing. I was mailing paintings, but you know, it's like I trade you a painting for a box of junk, and then I just got lazy. That's why that stopped. Well, because I didn't want to put I thought this was getting ridiculous. Yeah, well, yeah, you know, I thought I was painting anyway, and it was. I mean, they stack up after a while. What good were they doing me? Yeah, so. Yeah, yeah, right. It's a great giveaway. Yeah. Oh, yeah, all right. So maybe we'll kick it back. Maybe we'll kick it back up. Okay. So we good? Okay.
So, like the pantless Trump golfing.
Yeah.
Where did you? So you didn't find a pantless Trump. Where did you what did you start with that to then build this sculpture within the sculpture?
Yeah. So I pulled his pants down. That was me. Yeah. But no, I added I took a little sculpty, and it was like every once in a while I'll do little sculptures inside of the most of the time, actually, there's a little bird, a little maquette of the actual piece that I'm doing, kind of a meta. So that's another little thing. There's a lot of things I stuff in there that these never need a signature, because I came across a file of old mugshots from convicts, and I slide them in, sometimes in the bottom, sometimes, and so they appear. There are these patterns that I put into things, and then there's also there's some telltale things that I work in, but also there's usually another portrait of.
So are you telling me you do that because you're terrified that people will?
No, I want everyone to do
what you
this.
do, and
no, I'm not. I want people to. This is an invitation. The more people that are doing it, the better. Like, I hope it's a whole school one day, because people don't know what else to do with themselves because of AI. They're just like, yeah, let's make junk birds. Great idea, you know. It'd be like vegetable gardening or some shit. Just every garage is filled with nincompoops like myself was trying to cobble these little worlds together, you know, cleaning up their beaches, their local beaches and streets. I do. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they form their own categories over time. So.
Yeah, I'm interested on how you perceive your son's perceptions.
It's a beautiful mind that he has, but it's also scary to you know, he's about 15 years old, and he can verbally he's high functioning, so he could have a in-depth conversation with an academic or something, and it'd be seamless. He's got this huge vocabulary, but he could barely tie his own shoes, and he won't. Things just set up, and in his head, and he can't just manage things that most people just shrug and not pay no attention to, and they bore holes in his psyche that are kind of hard to fill, and you worry about that. But he's brilliant all the same. So.
Thank you so.
Yeah. Yeah, he dismisses me mostly, with good reason. I drive him nuts, my way. We run a rescue farm, and my wife just basically is like, no, your father was a rescue as well. Like, and she's right. She's dead right about that. I was living in a tool shed when we started dating.